The first thing Nico Salvatore did when he came back from the edge of death was not ask for his fiancée. He did not ask for his family. He did not ask which enemy had tried to burn him alive on the rain-slick streets of Manhattan. He opened his eyes in a private hospital room filled with marble floors, white roses, armed men, and cruel silence. Then he reached for the nurse. They were dragging out the door. Clara. The room froze. Clara Evans stumbled as one of the Salvatore guards loosened his grip on her arm. Her nurse's badge swung against her chest. Her hair had slipped from its neat bun. Her eyes were red from 40 hours without sleep, and there was a faint bruise blooming on her wrist where someone had grabbed her too hard. Across the room, Bianca Rinaldi stood in a white designer coat, diamonds shining at her throat like tiny weapons. She had been smiling seconds ago. Not anymore. Nico, Bianca whispered, rushing toward the bed. Thank God. But Nico's dark eyes did not move to her. They stayed on Clara. His face was pale beneath the bruises. A bandage cut across his ribs. Machines breathed softly around him. He should not have been conscious. He should not have been strong enough to lift one finger. Still, his hand remained outstretched. Come here, he said. Clara's pulse slammed against her throat. Bianca's lips parted in disbelief. She is just your nurse. Nico finally looked at his fiancée. For one terrifying second, the entire room seemed to remember who he was. Nico Salvatore was not only a patient, he was not only a man who had almost died, he was the most feared mafia boss on the East Coast, heir to a family empire built on blood, loyalty, silence, and impossible wealth. His voice came low and rough. Then why are you all so afraid of her? No one answered. Clara should have walked away. Every instinct she had spent 31 years trusting told her to get out of that room, leave the Salvatore family behind, and return to the clean, ordinary life she understood. A tiny apartment in Queens, double shifts, cold coffee, patient charts, her mother's old recipe cards taped inside a cabinet, a life where danger came through ambulance doors and left when the hospital lights flickered back to normal. But Nico's hand was still reaching for her. And beneath the steel in his eyes, beneath the dangerous calm, Clara saw something that did not belong in a man like him. Fear, not for himself, for the little boy hidden 2 floors below. 48 hours earlier, Clara Evans had been eating a vending machine granola bar at 2:17 in the morning when the emergency doors exploded open. Rain blew into the ambulance bay. Sirens screamed. Paramedics shouted over one another as 2 stretchers came through at once. The first carried a man covered in glass, smoke, and blood-dark rainwater. The second carried a child. The boy was maybe 5, small, unconscious, wrapped in a paramedic's jacket too large for his body. His curls were damp against his forehead, and one small hand clutched a broken silver chain with a black cross pendant. Clara dropped her granola bar. Trauma team now, doctor. Harris shouted. Male. Mid-30s. Multiple injuries from vehicle explosion. Possible gunshot wound. Child. Unknown relation. Respiratory distress. Clara moved before anyone told her to. That was the thing about Clara. She did not look like someone who belonged in rooms full of power. She was ordinary in the way most people look past. Soft brown hair, calm gray eyes, plain navy scrubs, comfortable shoes, no jewelry except a watch with a cracked face. She was not glamorous. She did not fill a room with beauty or fear. But when someone was dying, Clara became impossible to ignore. She cut through chaos with quiet precision. Pressure is dropping. One nurse called, "Get 2 large-bore IVs." Clara said, already gloving up. Cross-match blood. Watch his airway. The man on the stretcher turned his head slightly, even injured. He radiated command. His jaw was shadowed with stubble. A tattoo disappeared beneath the torn collar of his black shirt. Another curled over his wrist. Dark ink against olive skin. His face was bruised, but brutally handsome in a way that felt less like beauty and more like warning. Then Clara saw the ring on his right hand. A black onyx crest. Every nurse in New York knew that crest. Salvatore. Someone behind her whispered. That's Nico Salvatore. The room changed. Not visibly. The work continued. Doctors called orders. Nurses moved. Monitors beeped. But Clara felt it, the invisible shift that happened when fear entered a room. People lowered their voices. Security multiplied. One administrator appeared where no administrator should have been at 2 in the morning. A surgeon who had ignored 3 pages suddenly arrived in person. Clara hated it. A dying man was a dying man. A child was a child. Power did not matter beneath broken ribs. She leaned over Nico, checking his pupils. His eyes opened halfway. Dark, unfocused, violent with pain, where his voice rasped. Do not speak. Clara said, You were in an accident. You were at St. Aurelia. His gaze moved past her. Searching. The boy he breathed. Clara looked toward the second trauma bay, where the child had begun coughing weakly. He's alive. Nico's bloody hand closed around her wrist with sudden strength. No one knows. Clara stilled. What his grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, but enough to make her understand. No one, he whispered. Then his eyes rolled back. Clara stood frozen for 1/2 second, staring at the unconscious mafia boss whose first concern had not been his life, his umpire, or his enemies. It had been a child no one was supposed to know about. That was the first secret. The second arrived 7 minutes later wearing white heels. Bianca Rinaldi swept into the emergency wing like she owned it. Tall, elegant, blonde, wrapped in a cream coat worth more than Clara's monthly rent. She moved through chaos with the confidence of someone who had never been told no and remembered every person who had tried. Behind her came 2 men in black suits and an older man with silver hair and dead eyes. Where is my fiancé? Bianca demanded. The administrator hurried toward her. Miss Rinaldi. Mr. Salvatore is being stabilized. We will move him to the private surgical floor immediately. Bianca's gaze flicked toward the second trauma bay. The child was being rolled toward pediatric imaging. For one moment, her expression changed. Not worry. Recognition. Then calculation. Clara saw it because she had spent 10 years watching families hear terrible news. Real fear softened the face. Real love made people forget themselves. Bianca did neither. Her eyes narrowed. Just slightly. Who is that child? Bianca asked. The administrator hesitated. We still confirming. Clara stepped forward before she could think better of it. John Doe Minor, she said. Unrelated accident victim. Bianca looked at her as if noticing a smudge on glass. And you are Clara Evans. ICU nurse. How touching. Bianca's smile was delicate and cold. Make sure you do not confuse your role with importance. Clara held hair gauze. I don't usually confuse anything. Something sharp passed between them. Then Dr. Harris called Clara back. And the night swallowed her whole. Nico survived emergency surgery. Barely. The child survived too. Clara learned his name when he woke screaming in the pediatric observation room at dawn. Papa Clara pulled the curtain closed fast. The little boy thrashed beneath the blanket. Terrified. His eyes huge and wet. Hey, sweetheart, she said softly. Yuri's safe. Yuri in the hospital. No, He sobbed so hard his chest hitched. The car was burning. Papa was bleeding. The bad lady, said Clara, froze. What bad lady? The boy clamped his mouth shut. Someone's shoes clicked outside the room. White heels. Clara's blood went cold. She grabbed the boy's chart from the wall, pulled the curtain tighter, and turned just as Bianca appeared in the doorway. For a woman whose fiancé was in critical condition, Bianca looked untouched. Her lipstick was perfect. Her hair was smooth. Only her eyes were restless. I was told there was a child from the crash, Bianca said. Clara stepped in front of the bed. He's sedated? He doesn't look sedated. He's frightened. Bianca's smile returned. Children often are. The boy's small fingers grabbed the back of Clara's scrub top. Bianca saw it. Her gaze sharpened. What is his name? Hospital policy doesn't allow me to disclose information. Do you know who I am? Yes. Then you know I'm not asking. Clara's fear rose, but her voice stayed even. And you know I'm still not answering. For the first time, Bianca stopped smiling. Behind her, one of the Rinaldi men stepped forward. Clara pressed the nurse call button behind her back. The hallway filled with footsteps before he could enter. Doctor. Harris appeared, followed by hospital security. Miss Rinaldi, he said carefully. Your fiancé is being moved to the private ICU. The family is waiting. Bianca did not look at him. She looked at Clara. You have no idea what you are standing in the middle of. Clara held the boy's trembling hand. No, she said, but I know who I'm standing in front of. Bianca's face went still. Then she turned and walked away. That was the moment Clara should have told someone everything. Instead, she made the most dangerous decision of her life. She changed the boy's chart. Not enough to erase him. Clara was not foolish. Hospitals had cameras, logs, paper trails, but she moved him under a pediatric alias used for unidentified minors. She requested a floor transfer because of security concerns. She placed him in a quiet recovery room 2 floors below Nico's private suite, with a retired nurse named Mrs. Alvarez who owed Clara 3 favors and asked no questions. The boy told her his name in a whisper. Luca. Luca, what? His eyes filled again. Salvatore. Clara closed her eyes. A secret son. A hidden heir. A mafia boss nearly killed in a burning SUV. A fiancé who looked at a child like he was a problem to solve. By morning, the hospital was no longer a hospital. It was a battlefield with white walls. Black SUVs lined the curb. Men with earpieces filled the private wing. The Salvatore family took over the top floor. Flowers arrived by the dozens, white roses from the Rinaldis, black orchids from unknown associates, lilies from politicians who would deny knowing Nico if cameras appeared. Clara worked through it all. She monitored Nico's blood pressure, adjusted medication, checked the incision beneath his ribs, watched his fingers twitch when Bianca entered the room, watched his face remain still when his uncle spoke of family loyalty, watched every person around him pretend grief while calculating what his death would cost. Nico did not wake. But sometimes, when Clara changed the dressing or lowered the lights, his hand moved toward the edge of the bed, as if searching. Ans. Near midnight, he whispered her name. Not because he knew her, because hers had been the voice guiding him back from fire. Stay with me, Mr. Salvatore. She had told him during surgery prep, do not disappear on that child. Fight if you know how. Apparently, he did. On the second night, Clara found the hidden camera. It was tucked inside a white rose arrangement from Bianca, a tiny black lens, no larger than a pinhead, pointed directly at Nico's bed. Clara stood very still. Then she picked up the vase, walked into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and drowned the roses beneath hot water until petals slid down the drain like ruined silk. When she came out, Bianca was waiting. The private ICU suite had become a silent theater. Nico's uncle, Enzo Salvatore, sat in the corner with two capos. Bianca's father, Lorenzo Rinaldi, stood by the windows. Doctors hovered near the door, eager to be elsewhere. Bianca looked at the empty spot where the roses had been. "What happened to my flowers? They were contaminated," Clara said. Bianca's eyes glittered. "By what?" "Something that didn't belong near my patient." A hush fell. Bianca took one slow step closer. "Your patient, my unconscious patient. Listen to me carefully. Nurse Evans." Bianca's voice softened, which made it more dangerous. "You are not family. You are not blood. You are not his equal. You are not even a guest in this room. You are paid to check machines and empty bags. Do not stand there with your cheap shoes and your tired face, pretending Nico Salvatore would know your name if he were awake." Clara felt the words hit. She had been insulted before. By rich patients, drunk relatives, surgeons who mistook kindness for weakness. But this was different because the entire room listened and allowed it. Bianca turned to the guards. "Remove her." "Doctor." Harris stepped forward. "Miss Rinaldi." "Nurse Evans is assigned, then unassign her." A guard took Clara's arm. Clara did not fight. Not because she was afraid of being hurt, though she was, but because Luca was downstairs, and if she caused a scene, someone might start asking questions. Bianca leaned close as Clara was pulled past her. "You were just his nurse," she whispered. "And when this is over, no one will remember you were ever here." That was when Nico opened his eyes. "Clara." His voice was broken, but the room obeyed it. The guard released her. Bianca spun toward the bed, her perfect face cracking with shock. Nico's eyes burned through the haze of pain. He lifted his hand, fingers trembling. Clara walked back because something in him commanded it, and something in her could not refuse a patient fighting his way through death. She put her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, unsteady, alive. His gaze moved over her face with unsettling focus, as if he were memorizing every detail. Then he whispered so low only she heard. "Luca." Clara swallowed. "Safe." Nico's eyes closed for half a second. Relief passed across his face like a shadow no one else was meant to see. When he opened them again, the boss had returned. He looked at Bianca. "No one removes her from this room." "Nico," Bianca said, recovering fast. "You confused. You've been injured. This woman has been overstepping since you arrived." His thumb moved once over Clara's knuckles. A small touch. A dangerous claim. "I said," he repeated, each word quiet enough to chill the room. "No one touch her." Enzo Salvatore leaned forward. "Nico, we need to speak privately. Then leave." His uncle stared. So did everyone else. Nico's breathing labored, but his voice remained calm. "All of you." Bianca's laugh was soft and disbelieving. "You cannot mean me." Nico looked at her engagement ring. "I especially mean you." The diamond on Bianca's hand flashed beneath the hospital lights. Her face turned white. For 1 second, Clara saw the bride disappear and the enemy beneath her rise. Then Bianca smiled. "Of course," she said. "You need rest." She walked out with her father. Enzo followed more slowly, watching Clara with open suspicion. When the door closed, the machines filled the silence. Clara tried to pull her hand away. Nico did not let her. "You lied for my son." Clara's heart slammed. "You're not well enough for this conversation." "You hid him from Bianca." "I hid him from everyone." "Why?" because the first person who asked about him looked disappointed. He was alive. Nico went utterly still. The air changed. Clara had seen anger before. Loud anger. Careless anger. Men throwing things because they had no control over themselves. Nico's anger was silent. A city going dark before the explosion. "Tell me everything," he said. So she did. Not all at once. His condition would not allow it. His blood pressure spiked twice. Clara had to stop and force him to breathe through pain while he stared at the ceiling. Jaw clenched, absorbing the shape of betrayal. His SUV had not simply crashed. A truck had cut across the avenue near the East River. 2 motorcycles boxed in his security detail. Someone had fired through the windshield. The engine burst into flame before the vehicle hit the barrier. Luca had been in the car because Nico was moving him that night. Moving him where Clara asked? Nico's eyes shifted to the dark window. Away. The answer was too small for the pain behind it. From Bianca, from all of them. Clara should have been afraid of him. She was. But fear did not stop her from seeing the truth. Nico Salvatore. The man newspapers called ruthless and federal agents called untouchable, had nearly died trying to protect his child from his own world. "Does anyone know he exists?" Clara asked. 3 men. 2 are dead. And the third, Nico's face hardened. Missing. A chill ran through Clara. Nico turned his gaze back to her. "You need to leave this hospital. I have a shift. You have a target on your back. I have patience. You have my son's life in your hands." That silenced her. He watched the conflict move across her face. Something almost like fascination flickered in his eyes. "You re-afraid," he said. "I'm not stupid." "Good. But I'm not yours to order around." For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved slightly. Not a smile. Something more dangerous because it wanted to become one and refused. "No," he said. "Yuri not." Clara exhaled. Then he added, "That is why you're still alive." By dawn. The hospital scandal had already begun. A 10-second clip leaked online. Nico Salvatore, pale in a hospital bed, holding Clara Evans' hand while his fiancée stood frozen beside him. The headline spread faster than infection. Mafia boss wakes from coma. Rejects fiancé for nurse. By noon, Clara's phone had 47 missed calls. By own. The hospital suspended her pending review. By 2. Bianca appeared on television wearing black and looking devastated, claiming an exhausted nurse had manipulated a critically injured man during a vulnerable medical episode. By 3. Clara was cleaning out her locker with shaking hands. Her friend Maya stood beside her. Furious. "They can't do this." "They already did. You saved his life." Clara folded her spare scrubs and placed them in her bag. "I saved the wrong man." Quote, apparently. Maya lowered her voice. "Clara, what happened in that room?" Clara looked down the hall. 2 men in suits stood near the vending machines, pretending not to watch her. "I don't know anymore," Clara said. It was the truth and a lie. That night, she went home to Queens in the rain. Her apartment looked smaller than usual. Softer, more fragile. A lamp glowed by the window. Her plants leaned toward the glass. Her mother's old kettle sat on the stove. For a few minutes, Clara stood in the doorway and let herself believe she could still choose ordinary. Then she saw the black SUV parked across the street. She dropped her bag. The driver's side window lowered. Nico Salvatore sat in the back seat, bandaged beneath a black coat, his face half shadowed by rain sliding over tinted glass. He should have been in a hospital bed. Instead, he was outside her apartment like a warning carved from darkness. Clara stormed across the street without an umbrella. The driver stepped out. But Nico lifted one hand, stopping him. Clara yanked open the back door. Are you insane? Nico looked up at her calmly. Often. You left the ICU, I discharged myself. You had internal bleeding 48 hours ago. I still have enemies today. You need monitoring. I have you. Her breath caught. His eyes moved over her wet hair. The thin cardigan clinging to her shoulders. The anger, hiding fear in her face. Get in, he said. No. Clara. No. You don't get to show up outside my home like some nightmare in a tailored coat and order me into your car. His gaze sharpened. Not offended, interested. Nightmare, yes. I've been called worse. I'm sure you have, by people who knew you better. Rain struck the pavement around them. For a second, neither moved. Then Nico leaned forward slightly, and Clara saw pain flash beneath his control. I am not here because I enjoy being disobeyed in the rain, he said. I am here because Bianca leaked the video to make you visible. By morning, every enemy I have will know your face. She already ruined my job. She's trying to ruin your life. Why? Because you know my son survived. Clara's anger faded. Across the street, her apartment window glowed. Then the glass shattered. A bullet tore through the lamp. Nico moved faster than an injured man should have been able to move. He grabbed Clara by the waist and pulled her into the SUV as a second shot cracked through the rain. She landed against him, breathless. His arm locked around her, his body rigid with pain. Drive, he ordered. The SUV surged forward. Clara stared through the back window as her apartment disappeared behind rain and gunfire. Nico's hand was still at her waist. Protective, possessive, too intimate. She pushed away. He let her go, but his eyes stayed on her. I warned you, he said. Clara laughed once. Shakily. That's your comfort, no. He looked out at the wet city. That was my apology. They took her to a house on the Long Island coast. Not a house. A fortress pretending to be one. It rose above black water and storm-bent grass. All glass walls. Limestone. Iron gates. And security cameras hidden in garden lights. Black SUVs lined the curved drive. Men with guns watched from balconies. Inside, the room smelled of cedar, leather, rain, and money old enough to forget where it came from. Luca was there. The moment Clara entered, the little boy ran into her arms. Miss Clara, she knelt and held him tightly. Nico stopped in the doorway. For a heartbeat. The terrifying boss disappeared again. In his place stood a father looking at the only two people who had survived the fire with him. Luca pulled back and looked at Nico. Papa Nico lowered himself carefully to one knee, despite the pain. Luca ran to him. Nico closed his eyes as his son wrapped tiny arms around his neck. No one in the room spoke. Not the bodyguards. Not the doctor waiting with a medical kit. Not Clara. Though her throat tightened painfully. Nico held Luca as if he could rebuild the world by refusing to let go. Then his wound began bleeding through his shirt. Clara crossed the room immediately. You are impossible. She snapped, pulling Luca gently back. Sit down before you undo every stitch I fought for. Nico looked up at her. Something warm and dangerous passed through his eyes. You fought for me, Clara froze. That was not romantic. That was medical. Of course. Stop looking pleased. And I'm injured. Let me have this. She should not have smiled. She almost did. That night, forced proximity began, like war. Nico refused the private doctor's sedative. Clara refused to treat him unless he followed medical orders. He told her she was stubborn. She told him he was medically reckless and emotionally allergic to common sense. He stared at her for so long, one of his guards looked away. You speak to me differently than other people do, he said as she cleaned the edge of his wound. They were afraid you'll kill them. And you're not? Clara's hands slowed. I am. Nico's gaze lifted to her face. But fear doesn't make you right, she said. Silence stretched between them. His bare torso was warm beneath her fingers. Tattoos crossed his ribs and shoulder. Black ink, moving with every controlled breath. The room was lit by a single lamp. Rain tapped against the window. Somewhere down the hall, Luca slept under guard. Nico watched her as she worked. Not the way men watched women they wanted to charm. The way a starving man watched fire from a distance, knowing it could either save him or destroy him. You should have taken the money, he said. What money? The hospital settlement they'll offer you tomorrow to keep quiet? I don't want hush money. You'll need it. I need my job back. You need to survive. Clara pressed the bandage harder than necessary. He inhaled. Sorry, she said. Not sounding sorry. Nico's mouth twitched again. The almost smile made her stomach tighten, which annoyed her more than his arrogance. Do you flirt with every nurse who keeps you alive? She asked. No. Good. I usually threaten them. She looked at him. His expression was unreadable. Then she realized he was teasing her. Barely. Like a man using a language he had never been allowed to speak. Clara turned away to hide the strange ache in her chest. The days inside the coastal mansion blurred into tension. Nico healed slowly and hated every second of weakness. He took calls from shadowed rooms. Men came and went at impossible hours. Names passed through conversations like Knives Rinaldi, DeSantis, Federal Informants, missing shipments, burned cars, dead soldiers. Clara learned pieces of the world she had been dragged into. Bianca Rinaldi was not merely Nico's fiancée. She was the daughter of Lorenzo Rinaldi, head of a rival family whose alliance with the Salvatores had stopped a war 5 years earlier. Their engagement had been a contract disguised as romance. Nico had agreed because it kept blood off the streets. Then he had discovered Luca existed. Luca's mother, Elena, had been Nico's former lover before the engagement. She had disappeared years earlier after refusing mafia life. When she died suddenly in a car accident that now looked less accidental, a lawyer sent Nico a sealed letter. You have a son. Keep him away from them. Nico had found Luca 3 months ago. He had hidden him in a safe house under a false name. But someone found out. The night of the crash, Nico had been moving Luca out of New York for good. Bianca knew. That knowledge turned Clara's fear into something colder. She tried to kill a child, Clara said one night, standing in Nico's study while the ocean struck the cliffs outside. Nico looked up from a file. Yes. How are you so calm? I'm not. You look calm. That is different. The firelight cut across his face, making him look carved from shadow and restraint. Clara folded her arms. What happens now? Now I find the man who betrayed Luca's location. And Bianca. His eyes darkened. Bianca will come to me. Why? Because she thinks I won't kill the woman I almost married. Clara's stomach tightened. Will you? Nico stood. The space between them changed instantly. He did not move close enough to touch, but close enough for her body to become aware of him in a way that felt dangerous and unwanted. I told you, he said quietly. I am not a good man. I know. No. Clara, you know what the newspapers say. You know what? Frightened doctors whisper. You know I have men with guns at my doors. But you do not know what I am capable of when someone threatens what belongs to me. Her breath caught. What belongs to you? His eyes dropped to her mouth, for one forbidden second, then back to her eyes. My son, he said. The answer should have relieved her. It did not. Because something in the silence said he had stopped talking, only because the truth had come too close. The first time Nico almost touched her, Luca had a nightmare. The boy woke screaming for his mother. Clara reached him before the guards could call Nico. She sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Luca into her arms while he sobbed against her shoulder. I saw the fire. Luca cried. I saw the bad lady. She said Papa picked the wrong family. Clara's blood went cold. What bad lady? Luca, he shook his head hard. Sweetheart, was it Bianca? The door opened. Nico stood there, pale and still. Luca saw him and burst into fresh tears. Nico crossed the room, but stopped halfway, as if afraid his own darkness might make the nightmare worse. Clara looked up. Sit with him. Nico's jaw tightened. I don't know how. The admission was so quiet it broke something in her. Clara held out one hand. Then learn. Nico stared at her hand. For a moment. He looked exactly like he had in the hospital bed. A man reaching towards something he did not believe he deserved. Then he sat beside her. Together. They held Luca until the boy fell asleep between them. Nico's hand rested near Clara's on the blanket. Not touching. Almost. Rain moved over the windows. Luca's breathing softened. Nico looked down at his son. I built an empire. He whispered. I can make judges lie. Politicians bow. Enemies disappear. But I don't know how to comfort a 5-year-old boy. Clara's chest ached. You start by staying. His eyes lifted to hers. You make that sound simple. It isn't. Then why do you say it like you believe I can? Because he does. Nico looked at Luca again. His hand shifted. For one suspended second, his fingers brushed Clara's. Neither moved away. Then a guard knocked softly on the door. Boss, we found something. The moment shattered. Nico stood. Coldness returning like armor. Clara pulled her hand back and hated that it felt empty. The betrayal came from inside the Salvatore family. Enzo, Nico's uncle, had sold Luca's location to Bianca in exchange for control of a shipping route and a promise that once Nico married Bianca, the child would disappear from succession records forever. Clara learned this because Nico let her listen, not because he trusted her fully. He claimed, because she was already involved. But when his men dragged Enzo into the mansion's underground wine cellar, Clara followed and stood at the top of the stairs. Enzo was on his knees, face bruised, still proud. Nico stood before him in a black shirt, one hand braced against his wounded side, a gun held loose in the other. The scene looked like a painting of judgment. You brought them to my son, Nico said. Enzo spat blood onto the concrete. You brought that weakness into this family. A child makes you vulnerable. Nico's expression did not change. Clara's heart pounded. Enzo looked past Nico and saw her. Then he smiled. And now a nurse. Nico's gun lifted. Clara moved before she could stop herself. Nico, his hand froze. Every man in the cellar looked at her like she had stepped in front of a moving train. Clara came down the stairs slowly. This is not justice, she said. Enzo laughed. Listen to her. She thinks you can be saved. Nico did not look away from his uncle. Leave. Clara. No. His jaw tightened. I said leave. And I said no. The cellar went silent. Clara stopped beside him, close enough to feel the violence trembling beneath his control. If you do this because he betrayed you, that's your world, she said softly. But if you do it because he called your son weakness, then he wins. He makes Luca the reason his father becomes a monster. Nico's breathing changed. Enzo sneered. She owns you already. That was the wrong thing to say. Nico struck him so fast, Clara barely saw it. Not a gunshot, not execution. Just one brutal blow that dropped Enzo sideways onto the concrete. Then Nico handed the gun to his captain. "Lock him where he can still breathe," he said. For now, he turned and walked past Clara without looking at her. She followed him up the stairs, through the kitchen, into the dark hall. "Nico." He stopped. His back was to her. "You should not have come down there. You were going to kill him." "Yes, because he hurt you." "No." Nico turned. His eyes were terrifying, "because he looked at you." Clara forgot how to breathe. The confession stood between them like a loaded weapon. Nico stepped closer, then stopped himself. His hands curled at his sides. "I told you I was not good." Clara's voice softened. "Good men don't always make people feel safe." "And do I?" She wanted to lie. "Instead," she said, "sometimes you scare me." Pain flickered across his face before he buried it. "And sometimes," he asked. Clara held his gaze. "Sometimes you make me feel like the whole world could burn, and I still have somewhere to stand." Nico closed his eyes. For a second, his control almost broke. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen. "Bianca," he answered on speaker. "My love," Bianca said sweetly. "I hear your nurse is still alive." Clara went cold. Nico's eyes opened. "Enjoy that sentence," he said. "It's the last mistake you'll make with her name in your mouth." Bianca laughed softly. "Meet me tomorrow night. The Meridian Club. Public place. No guns at the table. Bring the nurse." "No." Then I released the second video. Clara looked at Nico. "What second video?" he asked. Bianca's smile could be heard through the phone, the one where your little secret calls you Papa. The Meridian Club sat above Manhattan like a jewel sharpened into a blade. Glass elevators rose 70 stories into a room of velvet shadows, gold light, and people pretending not to stare at criminals in tailored suits. Politicians drank with art dealers. Billionaires whispered with men whose fortunes had no legal origin. Every table looked expensive enough to hide a sin. Clara entered on Nico's arm, wearing a black dress chosen by his household staff and a coat he had placed over her shoulders without asking. She hated that it fit. She hated more that when Nico saw her in it, he went completely still. "You look angry," he said. "I am. At the dress. At the situation. The dress is innocent. The dress cost 3 months of my rent. I'll apologize to the dress." She glared at him. A faint warmth touched his eyes. Then cameras flashed. Bianca had made sure the press knew. The room turned as Nico Salvatore walked in with the nurse from the scandal. Not his fiancée. Whispers moved like sparks. Clara felt them crawl over her skin. Gold digger. Mistress. Nurse who seduced a mafia boss? Nico's hand settled at the small of her back. Not pushing. Grounding. "Look at me," he said under his breath. She did. The room blurred. "You are not here for them," he said. "You are here because the woman at that table threatened my son. And I need her to believe she still has power. And what am I supposed to do?" His gaze lowered to her mouth, and then returned with restraint so visible it felt like touch. "Stand beside me." "That's it. That is not nothing in my world." Bianca waited at the center table in red. Not bridal white this time. Blood red. War red. Her smile widened when Clara and Nico approached. "How beautiful," Bianca said. "You dressed the nurse?" Clara sat before Nico could answer. "I dressed myself." Bianca's smile sharpened. "I'm surprised you came. Public humiliation can be hard on ordinary women." Clara folded her hands in her lap. "I work in hospitals. Your opinion is not the worst thing I've survived this week." Nico looked at her. For one brief second, pride warmed his cold face. Bianca saw it. Jealousy flashed bright and ugly. "You think he cares for you?" Bianca leaned closer. He cares because you are useful. Because you know where the child is. Because men like Nico do not love women like you. They possess. They protect. Then they bury whatever becomes inconvenient. Nico's hand tightened around his glass. Clara felt the words land, but she refused to bleed where Bianca could watch. Is that what happened to Luca's mother? Clara asked quietly. Bianca's smile vanished. Nico went still. The entire table seemed to stop breathing. Bianca's eyes turned vicious. You should have stayed in your hospital. And you should have stayed away from a child. Bianca stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. Cameras flashed again. Then the windows exploded. Gunfire tore through the club. Screams shattered the room. Nico moved instantly. He threw Clara beneath him, shielding her with his body as glass rained over his back. His wound split open against her side. She felt the heat of his blood through his shirt. Nico, stay down. His men returned fire. Guests crawled beneath tables. Bianca disappeared behind a wall of Rinaldi guards. Clara pressed her hand to Nico's side. You re-bleeding. I know. You need pressure. I need you alive. A bullet struck the marble near them. Nico pulled her closer. His body a wall between hers and the violence. His mouth was near her ear. Do you trust me? Clara looked up at him through falling dust and broken chandelier light. She was terrified. She trusted him anyway. Yes. Something changed in his face. Not softness. Devotion taking root in a place where softness could not survive. He lifted her in one arm, despite the pain, and moved through chaos. Firing once. Twice. Not wildly, but with calm precision. His men closed around them. Black coats. Black guns. Black fury. Outside, SUVs screamed to the curb. Rain poured over Manhattan. Nico carried Clara through the storm while cameras captured every second. By morning, the world had a new headline. Mafia boss shields nurse during assassination attempt. This time, Clara did not read the comments. She woke in Nico's mansion with her hand bandaged, a cut on her temple, and Nico sitting beside her bed, not standing like a boss, sitting like a man who had been waiting all night for one breath to become steady. His shirt was clean. His face was not. He looked wrecked in a way no wound could explain. You should be resting, Clara whispered. So should you. I got hit by glass. I got hit by you, refusing to stay behind me. You were bleeding. You were supposed to run. I am a nurse. I noticed. His voice was quiet, but the anger beneath it trembled. Clara pushed herself up. What are you really mad about? He looked at her then. The answer was naked in his eyes before he could hide it. I thought I lost you. The room went silent. Nico stood abruptly and walked to the window. I have known you less than a week, he said, more to himself than to her. That should make this impossible. Clara's heart beat carefully. What he did not turn. This. The word held too much. Want. Fear. Need. Rhine. Clara slipped from the bed. Unsteady. He turned immediately, crossing the room before she could take 2 steps. His hands caught her arms. Gentle. So gentle it hurt. You don't get to disappear on me, he said. I'm standing right here. For now. His voice roughened. For now is all anyone has. He looked at her mouth. This time he did not move away. Clara's breath caught as his hand lifted toward her face. His thumb stopped a fraction from her cheek, close enough for her skin to feel the warmth. Then Luca's voice came from the doorway. Miss Clara. Nico stepped back as if struck. Clara turned. Luca stood in pajamas, clutching his black cross pendant. I had another dream. Clara opened her arms. The boy came to her. Nico watched them with a longing so deep it almost frightened her. Then Clara held out one hand to him too. This time, Nico took it. The three of them sat on the floor beside Clara's bed while dawn rose gray over the ocean. For one impossible hour. The mafia world did not exist. Only a wounded man, a terrified child, and an ordinary nurse who had become the center of a war without ever asking for power. But peace never lasted in Nico's world. At Nuon, Clara found the surveillance room. She had been looking for extra gauze. Instead, she opened the wrong door and stepped into a dark room lined with monitors. Her apartment building, her hospital locker, the street outside Maya's home. Security photos of Clara entering the hospital, leaving the hospital, standing in the rain beside Nico's SUV. Her stomach dropped. Nico found her there minutes later. She turned on him, pale with fury. "You had me watched." His face hardened. "For protection. You photographed my home. After someone shot into it, my friend, building, in case they went after her too. You don't get to decide that without telling me. I kept you alive. You controlled me." Nico's jaw tightened. "That is not the same thing. To men like you, it always is." The words hit him. Clara moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" "Away from screens where my life looks like evidence." He stepped in front of her. "Clara, move." "No." Her eyes flashed. "I am not Bianca. I am not your family. I am not one of your soldiers. You do not get to lock me in a beautiful house and call it safety." His face went cold, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear. Again. Always hidden beneath command. "If you leave, they will take you. Then ask me to stay. Don't décage me." The room went still. Nico stared at her, as if she had asked him to cut open his own chest. "I don't know how," he said. Clara's anger faltered. He looked away. "I know how to threaten, how to buy loyalty, how to punish betrayal. I know how to put men outside your building and cameras on every door. I know how to make the world afraid to touch you." His voice lowered. "I do not know how to ask." Clara stood silent. The monitors glowed around them like cold moons. Finally, Nico turned back. "Stay," he said. The word was rough, unpracticed, almost painful. "Not because I command it, not because you owe me. Stay because my son sleeps when you are near. Stay because my enemies know your face. Stay because when you walk out of a room, I count the seconds until I hear your voice again." Clara's heart trembled. "Nico, I am not asking you to love a monster." The word love struck both of them. He looked as if he regretted it instantly. "I'm asking you to survive one." Before Clara could answer, the mansion alarm screamed. Red lights flashed. A guard's voice erupted over comms. "Breach at Eastgate. Multiple vehicles." Nico shoved Clara behind him. The war had arrived at the door. The Ronaldos came with police lights and forged warrants. Bianca had played the perfect victim. She claimed Nico had kidnapped her fiancé's nurse, hidden an illegitimate child, and murdered his own uncle. She arrived at the gates with federal agents, private security, and enough cameras to turn the raid into theater. But Nico had planned for betrayal longer than Bianca had planned for victory. He handed Clara a coat. "Put this on." "What are you doing?" "Ending the engagement." Now publicly. Outside. Floodlights cut through rain. Reporters shouted at the iron gates. Agents argued with Salvatore attorneys. Bianca stood beneath an umbrella, beautiful and tragic for the cameras. Then the front doors opened. Nico walked out with Clara beside him. Luca was not there, safely hidden below the house with Mrs. Alvarez and two trusted guards. Just as Clara had insisted. Bianca's eyes locked onto Clara's coat. Nico squat. Something possessive and unmistakable. She smiled for the cameras. Nico, she called. Tell them you're unwell. Tell them this woman manipulated you. Nico descended the steps slowly. Every camera followed. I am perfectly aware of what Nurse Evans has done. Bianca's smile widened. She hid your child from your legal fiancé. She hid my son from the woman who tried to kill him. The shouting stopped. Even the rain seemed to pause. Bianca's face flickered. Nico lifted a small black drive. This contains security footage from my vehicle before the crash. A voice recording from inside the SUV. Bank transfers from your father to the DeSantis shooters. And the video you took inside my hospital room with a camera hidden in white roses. Bianca's smile died. Lorenzo Rinaldi pushed forward. You were making a mistake. Nico looked at him. I made the mistake 5 years ago when I called your family allies. One federal agent reached for the drive. Nico did not hand it over. He looked at Clara first, as if giving her the choice to stop him, as if her morality had become the last courtroom he feared. Clara nodded once. He gave the drive to the agent. Bianca lunged. Not at Nico. At Clara. Her hand came from beneath her coat, holding a small blade. Nico caught her wrist inches from Clara's throat. The speed of it stunned everyone. His expression did not change. Bianca's face twisted. All beauty burned away by hatred. She is nothing. Bianca hissed. She is a nurse. A nobody. You would destroy an empire for her. Nico leaned close. No, he said softly. I would destroy too. The cameras caught everything. The engagement ended in rain. Handcuffs. And Bianca screaming Clara's name like a curse. But Bianca was not finished. 3 nights later, Clara received a message from Maya's phone. I'm sorry, they made me call you. Attached was a photo. Luca S. Black Cross pendant lying on the floor of an abandoned church. Clara's blood turned to ice. The text came 1 second later. Come alone. Nurse Evans. Or the boy learns what his mother learned. Clara did not think. That was her mistake. Or maybe it was love arriving before she had a name for it. She took Nico's spare car from the garage while the mansion slept under storm clouds. She left her phone on the bed. She drove through rain with shaking hands towards St. Bartholomew S., an abandoned church near the harbor, where old saints watched broken windows and graffiti-covered marble angels. She knew Nico would rage. She knew he would follow if he could. But the message said, come alone. And Clara had spent her life going where frightened people called for help. The church doors creaked open beneath her hand. Inside, candles burned along the aisle. Bianca stood at the altar in a white dress, not a wedding gown. Something worse. A ghost of one. A ghost of one. Her hair was loose. Her wrists were bruised from custody restraints she had somehow escaped. 2 armed men stood in the shadows. Maya knelt near the front pew, bound and crying. Luca was not there. Clara's breath caught. Where is he? Bianca smiled. Safe. For now. Clara stepped forward. Let Maya go. You still give orders like you matter. I matter to you enough to bring me here. Bianca's eyes flashed. You ruined my life. You did that when you tried to murder a child. That child ruined everything. Bianca's voice cracked. Rage, spilling through elegance. Nico was mine by contract. The Salvatore Empire was mine by marriage. Then Elena's brat appeared with his little eyes and his little cross, and suddenly Nico wanted out. You killed Elena. Bianca's smile trembled. Accidents happen. Clara felt sick. Bianca descended the altar steps. You think he loves you because he held your hand, because he bled on you, because he looks at you like he's starving. Nico doesn't love. He fixates. He protects what soothes his guilt. Today it's you. Tomorrow, you'll be another locked room in his mansion. Clara's hands shook, but her voice did not. You wrong. Am I? Bianca's gaze slid toward the door. Clara turned. Nico stood at the entrance of the church. Rain poured behind him. He was alone. No guards. No quad. Just a black shirt soaked through and a gun at his side. His eyes found Clara first. Relief. Fury. Fear. Devotion. All of it burned there. Bianca laughed softly. He came alone. How romantic. Nico stepped into the church. I told you, he said, voice low. Never put her name in your mouth again. Bianca lifted her gun toward Clara. Nico stopped. The church became one held breath. Clara looked at him and understood. This was the nightmare he had tried to prevent. The thing he feared most. Not death. Not betrayal. Not losing power. Being forced to watch someone he loved used as leverage. Bianca saw it too. Her smile widened. There it is, she whispered. The great Nico Salvatore. On his knees for a nurse. Nico's jaw tightened. Then he lowered himself to one knee on the wet marble aisle. Clara's heart broke. Nico. No. His eyes stayed on her. Look at me, he said. She did. Are you hurt, even now? Even like this? She almost cried. No. Good. Bianca's face twisted. How touching. Then chaos erupted. A stained glass window shattered. Not from outside, from the bell tower. Nico's men had not followed through the door. They had come from above. The armed men turned. Shots cracked through the church. Candles flew. Maya screamed. Clara lunged toward her, cutting the rope with a shard of broken glass as Nico moved through the violence like a storm given human shape. Bianca grabbed Clara from behind. Cold metal pressed beneath Clara's jaw. Nico. He turned instantly. One of Bianca's men fired. Nico jerked as the bullet struck his side, reopening the wound that had never fully healed. Clara screamed his name. He dropped to one knee. Bianca laughed. Breathless and wild. Now watch him die for you. But Clara was no longer only afraid. She was furious. She drove her heel down hard onto Bianca's foot, twisted away from the blade, and slammed her elbow back, the way self-defense instructors taught nurses after too many parking garage attacks. Bianca stumbled. Nico fired once. The gun flew from Bianca's hand. She fell against the altar. Stunned, Nico collapsed. Clara ran to him. Blood spread beneath her palms as she pressed down on his wound. No, she breathed. No, you do not get to do this again. Nico looked up at her. Face pale? Rainwater and blood darkening his shirt. You came alone. He rasped. You followed me alone. I'm allowed to be stupid. I was shot. Don't you dare joke. His hand lifted, trembling, to cover hers. Around them, his men. Secured the church. Bianca screamed as guards dragged her away. Maya sobbed in the pews. Thunder rolled over the harbor. But Clara saw only Nico. The man who had first reached for her from a hospital bed. The man who frightened her. The man who listened when she told him not to become a monster in his son's name. The man who had knelt because a cruel woman demanded proof that he could be broken. And he had done it. For her. His breathing grew shallow. Clara pressed harder. Stay with me. Mr. Salvatore. She whispered. Echoing the first night. His eyes found hers. This time, through pain. He smiled. A real one. Small. Devastating. Still medical, he asked. Clara bent over him. Tears slipping down her face. No, she said. This part is not medical. His fingers tightened around hers. Good. Then his eyes closed. For the second time, Clara Evans fought Nico Salvatore back from death. This time, she did not do it in a hospital. She did it on the floor of an abandoned church, while rain came through broken stained glass and the saints looked down like witnesses. She kept pressure on the wound until her arms shook. She ordered mafia soldiers around like interns. She made one pray because he was useless at everything else. She refused to let Nico's pulse fade beneath her fingers. When the ambulance arrived, she climbed in beside him. No one tried to remove her. Weeks later, St. Aurelius Hospital reopened its East Wing under a new name, the Elena Salvatore Pediatric Trauma Center. Officially, it was funded by an anonymous donor. Unofficially, everyone knew. Clara stood in the lobby wearing navy scrubs again, watching sunlight move across polished floors. Her suspension had been revoked after Bianca's crimes became public. The hospital board issued a statement praising her courage. Clara did not attend the press conference. She had no interest in being polished into a story they could survive. Maya recovered. Luca began seeing a child therapist and no longer woke, screaming every night. Bianca Rinaldi disappeared into federal custody under charges that would keep her surrounded by concrete for decades. Lorenzo Rinaldi's empire fractured before winter. Enzo Salvatore lived. Barely. Nico kept him alive because Clara had once told him Luca should not become the reason his father turned into a monster. Nico never admitted that was why. But Clara knew. She saw it in the choices he made when he thought no one was watching. He moved differently after the church. Still dangerous. Still feared. Still capable of making powerful men lower their eyes. But not empty. Not untouched. One evening, Clara found him outside the pediatric wing, standing beside Luca as the boy placed a drawing on the dedication wall. The drawing showed three figures: a tall man in black, a small boy with a cross necklace, a woman in blue scrubs holding both their hands. Clara stopped several feet away. Nico turned as if he had sensed her before seeing her. He was still healing. A black coat rested over his shoulders. His face was no longer pale, but the shadows beneath his eyes had changed. Less from pain now, more from learning how to stay. Luca hunted to Clara. "Miss Clara, look, I drew us." She knelt, smiling through the ache in her chest. "I see that. You were holding Papa's hand because he gets lost." Nico's eyebrow lifted. "I get lost," Luca nodded solemnly. "Emotionally." Clara pressed her lips together. Nico looked at her. "You taught him that word." "I'm a medical professional." "That is not medical." "It might be." Luca giggled and ran toward Mrs. Alvarez. Clara stood. For a moment, she and Nico were alone in the golden hospital light. "You came back," he said. "I work here. You know what I mean." She did. After the church, Nico had not asked her to move into his mansion. He had not demanded. He had not trapped her behind gates and called it love. He had sent one message: "When you are ready, I will ask properly." Clara had taken 3 weeks to answer. Not because she doubted what she felt, because loving a man like Nico Salvatore meant understanding the cost of standing in his world. It meant cameras, enemies, whispered names, and the knowledge that peace would always have guards at the door. But it also meant Luca's small hand in hers. It meant Nico sitting in a hospital chair at midnight while Clara finished a shift, saying nothing, simply waiting because staying was how he had learned love. It meant the most dangerous man in New York asking instead of ordering. Clara looked at him. "Ask." Then, Nico's face changed. Not dramatically. The world did not stop. No thunder. No gunfire. No shattered glass. Only his eyes. He reached into his coat and took out a ring. Not Bianca's diamond. Not some empire's contract. A simple antique ring with a dark sapphire set in gold. Beautiful in a quiet, Old-fashioned way. My mother says, he said. Clara's breath caught. I have signed contracts. Clara. Built alliances. Ended wars with handshakes and lies. I know how to take. I know how to keep. His voice lowered. But you taught me how to ask. He held out his hand, just as he had in the hospital. Only now he was standing. Alive. Choosing. Clara Evans. He said, will you take my hand, not because I am dying, not because you are trapped, not because my world demands it, but because you want to. Tears blurred her vision. You make it sound simple. It isn't. Then why do you say it like you believe we can? Nico's eyes softened. Because you do. Clara looked at his hand. She remembered Bianca's voice. You were just his nurse. She remembered being dragged from a room by men who thought power decided worth. She remembered Nico waking, reaching, saying her name before anyone else. And she realized the truth was not that a mafia boss had chosen an ordinary nurse. The truth was that an ordinary nurse had stood in front of death, betrayal, money, blood, and fear, and chosen herself first. Only then could she choose him. Clara placed her hand in Nico's cell. His fingers closed around hers. The hospital lobby glowed around them. Lucas shouted from across the room. Papa. Don't mess it up. Nico closed his eyes briefly. Clara laughed. A real laugh this time. Then Nico pulled her gently closer. Not enough to claim her before the world. Just enough to let her decide the final inch. She stepped into him. His forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said quietly. The words sounded like they had cost him every wall he had ever built. Clara touched his face. I know. His eyes opened. A flicker of panic crossed them. She smiled. And I love you too. Outside. Black SUVs waited in the evening rain. Inside. Children laughed in the new trauma wing. And Nico Salvatore, the man the city feared, stood in the middle of a hospital holding the hand of the woman who had brought him back to life twice. Once as his nurse, once as the only woman he would ever ask for. This time, when he bent and kissed her, he did it slowly, not like a man taking what belonged to him, but like a man finally understanding that devotion was not possession. It was choosing, every day, to become someone worthy of the hand that stayed, and Clara stayed. Not because she was just his nurse, because she had become his home